Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome to another lesson video. Today, we're going to be doing section 3, lesson 6, part 2. And section 3, lesson 6, we were doing rules of stopping and starting. Last time, we went over all the marks, the different points or markings at which you should stop and what the rules are related to those stops. And today, we're going to be doing how exactly do you stop and how exactly do you start. So let's get into it. On the agenda today, we're going to do a review of the previous lesson. As usual, I'm going to ask you to do the warm-ups. Don't skip. We're going to review and memorize, continue to memorize our letter collections. And then we're going to go over the meat and potatoes of today's presentation, which is going to be rules of stopping and starting. And I'm going to give you one or maybe two exercises. I think it's going to be one exercise. So that's on the agenda today. Okay, review from last time. The types of stops. On the far right side, this mark that you see is indicated by a green light. And remember, what happens at a green light? You don't stop, you must keep going. Stopping is prohibited at this point, and you can get into an accident. If you stop at a green light, somebody might hit you in the back. So keep going, don't stop. At this point, stopping is prohibited. That means keep going, green. And all the way to the left, the meme, which is indicated by a red light, is that a point at which you must stop, right? Continuing is prohibited. And if you continue, you can change the meaning. And basically at the lam alif, which is the green sign on the right, if you don't, if you like stop, and if you basically ignore the sign, if you stop and you don't continue, that might also change the meaning. There are two sub-rules of the meme on the far left side, which is the sakta or the scene, or the mu'anaqa, which is indicated by three dots, two sets or two pairs of three dots. So wherever you see these two, you must stop at one or the other and not both. And whenever you see the little scene, you have to take a short pause without taking a breath. Now, all the ones in the middle, sili, jim, qili, etc., those were, um, you know, reader's choice. It's on the sili, it's better to continue. Stopping is allowed. On the jim, it's stopping or continuing are both allowed. On the qili, it's better to stop, but continuing is allowed. But for beginners, I say, if you can't remember the rules related to sili, jim, qili, just stop at all three, and that will be easier for you. But you must remember the la and the meme and the two sub rules of the meme. And finally, the guideline that I gave you, other than these seven, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is the meme, and then the two sub rules of the meme, which is seven, I gave you an eighth, which is whenever you see a point marking the end of a verse, which is a circular mark with a number in it, that you should stop at that point as well. So that's a quick review of last time. As usual, go to the warm-ups video. You can watch the long form warm-ups or the short form warm-ups video of the video, but please do watch the warm-ups, do the warm-ups, do not skip. And on to letter collections. We're gonna remember our throat letters or letters of idgham, the lip letters, the tafkhim letters, idgham, mad, and qalqala letters. The throat letters are also called, or also the same as the letters of idgham, are hamza ha, ayn ha, ghayn kha. So the lip letters are those whose primary articulation point is from the lips. It's fa, waw, ba, and mim. Next, we have the tafkhim letters, and these are the letters that are always pronounced heavy, as if your mouth is full of food or as if you sound like an opera singer. All. We're going to go over tafkhim and tarqiq in a future video. But the tafkhim letters are slad, bad, ta, wa, ghayn, kha, and qaf. These are always pronounced heavy. On to idgham letters. Idgham letters can be remembered by yarmalun or ya, ram, mim, lam, waw, and nun. Mud letters are a collection of letters when you see them, and basically you elongate the sound to two counts, and they are alif, waw, and ya. Finally, we have the qalqala letters. You can remember by either jad qutub or qutub jad, which is qaf, Ba, Ba, Jim, Dal. I hope by this time I've like drilled this into you guys so much that you should have all of these letter collections memorized. On to today's lesson: how to stop and continue. Last time we talked about stopping points or when to stop, right? We marked the points at which indicate how basically to stop and what the rules are for lam, alif, sili, qili, jim, mim, the mu'anaqa, sakta, etc. But that's not what today is about. Today is all about how to stop and how to continue, right? Last time we talked about these are the points at which you should stop or can stop, and these are the points which you shouldn't stop or must not stop, etc. That's what we talked about last time. Today is all about how to stop and how to continue. And again, these are not, just like I told you last time, these are not hard and fast rules, because when I say quote unquote rule, yes, these are rules that beginners should follow, but these aren't necessarily rules because, well, advanced reciters can actually ignore them and they will be just fine, right? Because they know what they're doing. But for some beginners, I have put these rules with beginners and created these rules with beginners in mind. Okay, on to rule number one: stopping and continuing in the middle. And this is going to happen to you because some verses of the Quran are going to be lengthy. And when you come across such a lengthy verse, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to break your breath. You are not going to be able to continue to recite. And when you are breaking your breath, you will treat the word upon which you are breaking your breath as if it is a stopping point. And basically, you will treat the word, all the rules that you're going to learn about today on how to stop, all of them are going to apply to that word. So you will treat that word as if you are stopping on it. So all those rules are going to apply, that you're going to learn on how to stop, are going to apply to that word, right? So when you're breaking your breath in the middle of the verse, all those rules apply. But you're going to continue by reading back two or three words from where you stopped. What does that mean? If it's a lengthy verse and you stopped in the middle, and you had to stop in the middle because you ran out of breath, and it's going to happen, then what you should do is you should go back two or three words. And if you go back two or three words and you continue, that's the best way to actually read from and restart from where you stopped. Now, it is possible for advanced reciters to actually, stop at a word and basically continue from the next word, even though there is no stopping point or there is no, rules to stop there. But they can stop and they can continue. And I'll give you an example of this. And basically, they don't read two or three words back. And that does not affect the meaning at all. But that's actually advanced, right? In order for you to know what that is, you have to know the meaning. And for that reason, this is actually for advanced reciters. For beginners reciters, you should avoid this practice. You should always, wherever you stop from, go back two, three, some you can even go back four words. And wherever you stop from, start reciting back from two or three or four words and continue onwards. So let's get into an example of this, of stopping in the middle. We're going to do Surah Quraysh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لإيلاف قريش إيلافهم رحلة الشتاء والصيف فليعبدوا رب هذا البيت الذي أطعمهم من جوع أطعمهم من جوع وآمنهم من خوف. Now notice how I did that. I stopped at minju. I went back three words and then I went أطعمهم من جوع. So I went الذي أطعمهم من جوع, and then in order to continue, I went back three words, and then I say أطعمهم من جوع وآمنهم من خوف. You can go back and listen to how I did it. But there is an interesting point that I wanted to let you know. When I first learned this surah, I actually learned it by listening to a reciter. And that reciter, because I kept listening to the same recitation over and over again, that reciter actually stopped at min ju, right? This is how you used to recite this verse. You used to recite it, الذي أطعمهم من جوع وآمنهم من خوف. And because he used to recite it like that, I always thought there was a verse mark or an ending mark here. But when I actually read it after I learned it, I was like, wait a minute, there's nothing here. And because he was an advanced reciter, he knew that الذي أطعمهم من جوع, stopping here doesn't change the meaning, and he does not need to go back 3 or 4 words in order to continue. But again, this is a practice that beginners should avoid. I hope that's clear. Rule number 2, stopping on tanween and vowels. And if the word you're stopping on, or if the word that you had to stop on or stopped on, whether it's at the end of a verse, meaning you are stopping at the end of a marking of a verse, or stopping in the middle because you're breaking your breath. If the word that you're stopped on has any vowel, whether it's fatha, dhamma, kasra, or any tanween except tanween al-fath, so there are 5 cases. If it is a fatha, dhamma, kasra, or it has dhammatan or kasratan, then you will treat the letter as if it has a sukoon on it, right? So we saw examples of this just a second ago in Surah Quraysh. We'll continue again with the same rule. So rule number 2, when stopping on tanween and vowels, then you have to see if it's a fatha dhamma kasra or dhammatan or kasratan. Those are the 2 tanweens and the 3 diacritical marks, which is fatha dhamma kasra, that you have to keep in mind. The total of 5, these 5 diacritical marks you have to keep in mind. If you see these 5, then you have to treat them as if it has a sukoon on it. So let's get into it. So I'm not going to recite Surah Quraysh for you again, but you can go back and listen. But this is لِإِيلَافِ قُرَيْشٍ, right? This is Shin Kasratan Shin. And basically, I turned this Sheen, or we turned this Sheen into a Sheen with a Sukoon because we're stopping at this point. If we weren't stopping, it is possible for us to continue. We can say لِإِيلَافِ قُرَيْشٍ إِيلَافِهِمْ رِحْلَةَ الشِّتَاءِ. Now, we don't have to stop at this point if we don't want to. And a lot of advanced reciters, they continue even in the middle of a verse, or even when the verse has ended. And it's perfectly allowed for you to do that. But in my case, I'm stopping. And because I'm stopping, I'm turning this sheen kasratan into a sheen sukun. So I'm saying li'ilafi Quraysh. I'm not saying li'ilafi Qurayshin because I'm stopping. I'm saying li'ilafi Quraysh. And same thing here. I say رب هذا البيت. Now this is تا كسرة T. If I was to continue, I would say تا كسرة لام شدة تل. رب هذا البيت الذي. Right? That's this Hamzat al-Wasl will get cancelled. This تا كسرة gets connected to the lam shadda and it'll be هذا البيت الذي. Right? But because we're stopping, we're going to say هذا البيت. تا كسرة, we do a sukoon. This تا كسرة turned into a تا sukoon. هذا البيت. And same thing with this خوف, فا كسرتان. This turns into a fa sukoon. من خوف. Okay? من خوف. That's what it turns into. I hope that's clear. Now, it doesn't matter where this is occurring. For example, when we stopped at الذي أطعمهم من جوع, this عين كسرتان, we treated it as if it was any other stop, right? We عين كسرتان turned into عين سكون, so we said من جوع, right? So that is, I hope that's clear. Rule number 3. Now, we talked about the 5 diacritics, the 6th diacritic, which is the tanween al-fath, which is, we talked about kasratan and dhammatan. Those turn into a sukoon. When you see fathatan or tanween al-fath, if the word you stop on has fathatan or tanween al-fath, you add a fatha and an alif. And this is how you're going to recite it. What I want you to focus on, I'm going to recite it for you. I want you to focus on how I am reciting the last words of each of these verses. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والجبال أوتادا وخلقناكم أزواجا وجعلنا نومكم سباتا وجعلنا الليل لباسا وجعلنا النهار معاشا وبنينا فوقكم سبعا شدادا وجعلنا سراجا وهاجا. Now notice the last word of each of these verses. When I'm stopping, what I'm doing is it's the word actually is awtadan, but because it's fathatan, what I do is I drop one of the fathas and just say, and then say, and I pronounce the alif sukun, which is dal fatha alif sukun, da, awta, da. If I was to continue, I would say awta then, but I'm not going to. I'm stopping at these fathatan. And because I'm stopping at these fathatan, I say it as if dal fatha alif sukun, da. So we're going to say awta, da. Same with this word, it says azwajan, but I say jim fathatan jan if I was continuing, but I'm not. I'm stopping, so I'm going to say jim fatha alif sukun ja azwaja. This is going to be subatan if I was going to continue, but I'm not because I'm stopping. I'm going to say subata ta fatha alif sukun. This is going to be libasa sin fatha alif sukun. This is going to be ma'asha shin fatha alif sukun. This is going to be shidada dal fatha alif sukun. This is going to be wahaja, so forth and so on. And it's a good thing that whenever you see fathatan, it will immediately be followed by an alif sukun, right? If you are going to continue, that alif sukun gets cancelled, and you're going to, pronounce the shin fathatan shan. But if you're stopping, then you're going to say shin fatha alif sukun as if this has a shin fatha and this alif sukun gets put back. I hope that's clear. That's rule number 3 if you are stopping on tanween fatha. Rule number 4 when you're stopping on a ta marbuta. We talked about ta marbuta in one of the beginner videos. If you want, you can watch. I believe it might be the 3rd or 4th video on the channel. I don't even remember anymore. But if the word ends with a ta marbuta, the ta marbuta turns into a ha, the heavy ha, not the second ha, which is, but the heavy ha, the H sound. So if the word ends in a ta marbuta and you're stopping at that ta marbuta, the ta marbuta will turn into a ha even if it ends with a fathatan, which is an example that you see right here. So let's go ahead and recite this. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم هل أتاك حديث الغاشية وجوه يومئذ خاشعة عاملة ناصبة تصلى نارا حامية تسقى من عين آنية. Okay, so for each of these, now regardless of what the diacritic on the ta marbuta is, if you're stopping at the ta marbuta, then you are going to turn the ta marbuta into a ha. So this is ghashiyah, this is khashi'ah, this is nasibah, this is hamiyah, this is aniyah. But if you were to continue, it would be hadithul ghashiyati. If you were to continue, it would be khashi'atun. If you were to continue here, it would be nasibatun. If you were to continue here, it would be hamiyatun. If you were to continue here, it would be aniyatin. Notice, regardless of the diacritic on the ta marbuta, even if it's end with fathatan, which is the case here, hamiyah, because remember, I don't want you to get confused with the previous rule. We talked about fathatan, right? If the word you has stopped on has fathatan at the end, then you add a fatha and an alif. But this is not the case when you see the ta marbuta. With the ta marbuta, even if it has fathatan on it, you cancel the diacritic and you turn it into a ha. So this is not, so this is going to be hamiyah. I hope that's clear. That's rule number 4. Rule number 5, if the word ends with a med or maddulin, and you can go back to the mad video or the maddulin video, those are separate videos in that channel, you can go back and review them. You can complete the mad for 2, 4, or 6 counts, but keep it consistent. Now, what do I mean by that? If the word, the last syllable of the word has a mad or a maddulin, then you can complete the mad for 2, 4, or 6 counts, but keep it consistent. Now let's go ahead and review what I mean by that. We recited Surah Quraysh just a second. If you want, you can go back and listen to my recitation. I'm going to recite it for you again now. But I want you to listen how I am reciting the last word, right? Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. لإيلاف قريش إيلافهم رحلة الشتاء والصيف فليعبدوا رب هذا البيت الذي أطعمهم من جوع وآمنهم من خوف. Now, for all of these, Quraysh, Slaif, Bayt, and Khawf, even though this is an example of Maddulleen, we will go to that example in just a second as well. But this, actually, this is an example of Maddulleen as well. This is an example of Maddulleen, Maddulleen. All these examples are Maddulleen, right? So, Ra Fathiya Sugun Ray, this is Quray. Now, what I do is Quraysh, I extend each of the words, ending words, are all Maddulleen, and I am extending them to 4 counts. So I'm saying Quraysh, and I'm allowed to do that. But if I'm going to start at one recitation session and I am including or I'm, you know, completing this mud to 4 counts, then I should continue with the same pattern throughout my recitation. So I should say Quraysh. If I do 4 counts the first time, then Wasayf will be 4 counts, Al-Bayt will be 4 counts, and Khawf will be 4 counts as well. So keep it consistent all throughout your recitation session. You are allowed to do 2, 4, or 6 counts. It's up to you. But you should remain consistent. Okay, so these are all examples of me extending the last syllable, which is a syllable that contains maddulin, to 4 counts. So now let's continue with examples of mad, regular mad, right? And in this case, I'm going to be extending the mad to 4 counts as a regular mad. Before we touch talking about the maddulin, these are regular mad letters. So let's go ahead. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والتين والزيتون وطور سينين وهذا البلد الأمين لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن تقويم ثم رددناه أسفل سافلين. You know what? I'm going to stop here. That's getting lengthy. The video is getting lengthy, but you get the idea, right? Zaytun, this word, this syllable, tun, ta dhamma waw sukun, ta dhamma waw sukun, tu nun kasrani tuni, because I'm ending at the noon, this noon kasra gets cancelled and this becomes noon sukun. So this final syllable is going to be tun, but because I want to extend it to 4 counts, I can. I'm going to say وَالزَّيْتُونِ سِنِينَ. This final syllable, I can extend up to 6 counts if I want. For consistency's sake, I'm doing it to 4 counts. And you have probably heard reciters, reciting like this. This is, I believe the technical term is ishba, or completing the mud. But you are allowed to do 2, 4, or 6 counts. 2 would be regular, meaning Amin, that's regular, that's 2 counts, and it's fine. You can do that. Nothing wrong with that. But if you extend it, it's remain consistent to either 4 or 6 for the rest of your recitation. So this is going to be Zaytun, Sinin, Amin, Taqweem, Safilin. Each of these I'm extending to 4 counts, and you can do the same. Now let's do a quick review of Hamzat al-Wasl. What is Hamzat al-Wasl? We talked about this in multiple videos, so I'm not going to go in a lot of details, but it's going to be basically this knowledge is scattered out across a bunch of videos. What is Hamzat al-Wasl? It is a connecting Hamza. And basically the rule is that if you start using Hamzat al-Wasl, you have to add a diacritical mark to it. So for example, whether you're starting in the middle of a verse and where you're starting from has a word that has a Hamzat al-Wasl on it, then that Hamzat al-Wasl doesn't get cancelled. If you get connected, then the Hamzat al-Wasl gets cancelled. But if you're starting, or if you start reading from a word, whether it's at the beginning of a verse, or if you had to stop and continuing, you're stopping from and continuing from in the middle, but you happen to continue from a word that contains a Hamzat al-Wasl, then you must add a vowel diacritic to it. Now, which vowel diacritic you add is what we're going to talk about, which is rule number 6, starting with Hamzat al-Wasl. Hamzat al-Wasl has multiple rules, and these are the rules of starting with the Hamzat al-Wasl. If it is the definite article, which everybody knows is Hamza, Fatha, Lam, Sukun, L, right? L. If the letter immediately following the Hamzat al-Wasl is Lam, then the Hamza gets a Fatha on it, and you just say L. That's pretty simple. Nothing complicated there, right? Al-Mawdud, there's so many examples we've gone over, but if it's a definite article, nothing super complicated there. The second rule is if the first vowel letter that you see within the word, so if it's a word that starts with a Hamzat al-Wasl, and the very first vowel letter that you see has a dhamma on it, then the Hamzat al-Wasl also gets a dhamma. Otherwise, the Hamzat al-Wasl gets a kasra. But there are a lot of exceptions to this. I'm going to go over these exceptions, and I'm going to give you the rule on how to avoid those exceptions so you don't run into trouble. But you have to remember these. If it's the definite article, you see the immediately following Hamza, there's a lam sukun. That means it's an al, or the definite article. So Hamzatul Wasl gets a fatha. That's easy enough to remember. Second, the first vowel letter, meaning if, let's assume for argument's sake, Hamza gets connected with another letter and that letter has a sukun on it, that's not the first vowel letter, is it? Right? It has a sukun. The first vowel letter is going to either have a fatha, dhamma, or a kasra. If the first vowel letter has a dhamma, then the Hamzatul Wasl also gets a dhamma. Otherwise, the Hamzatul Wasl gets a kasra. Okay? I hope that's clear. We're going to go over these examples in a second. Right here, these are examples of Hamzatul Wasl, and the word that we're going to talk about is this one. This is alladhi, and because it's lam and it's the definite article, we don't care about this dhal sukun. The reason is, or this actually, no, the first letter that actually has the vowel letter that has a diacritic is lam fatha, but because this is hamza fatha lam sukun or hamza fatha lam shadda al, remember shadda is the letter occurring twice. So this is actually 2 lams, 1 lam with a sukun on it and 1 lam with a fatha on it. That's what the shadda is indicating. Hamza fatha lam shadda al, that's the definite article. And because it's the definite article, we don't care about any of the letters that come after. This Hamzatul Wasl gets a fatha. Alladhi. Right? Now, this is the example of, this is an example of this third exception, which is otherwise the Hamzat al-Wasl gets a kasra. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the second rule. If the first vowel letter has a dhamma, then a Hamzat al-Wasl gets a dhamma. So let's go ahead and take a look at what the first vowel letter is. I don't know what this Hamzat al-Wasl is supposed to get, right? This is a noon sukun, so that's not the first vowel letter. The first vowel letter is actually ta, and the diacritic that occurs on it is a fatha. And because that's the case, let's go back. Oops, let's go back. Because that's the case, the first vowel letter is not a dhamma. The Hamzat al-Wasl is going to get a kasra. So which is inṭaliqu. This is going to be inṭaliqu. I hope that's clear. But then, this example, which is going to be, if the first vowel letter has a dhamma, then the Hamzat al-Wasl gets a dhamma, is going to be this word right here. وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِقَوْمِهِ يَا قَوْمِ اذْكُرُوا. If I were to continue, mim kasra zal sukun, then this Hamzat al-Wasl gets cancelled. But if let's say, I lost my breath, and I stopped at ni'mat Allah. Now, if I go back 3 words, Allah would be one word, and I go back one, that's ni'mah, and then I go here. If I want to start from here, what's going to be the diacritic on this Hamzat al-Wasl? And we're going to go back to this rule. If the first vowel letter has a dhamma, then the Hamzat al-Wasl gets a dhamma, and that's the case here. The Zal sukun is not the first vowel letter. Sukun is not a vowel. Dhamma is a vowel, right? So the first letter is going to be, this is going to be uzkuru. Uzkuru. Hamza, dhamma, Zal sukun, uzkuru. Okay, I hope that's clear. Now, starting with Hamzat al-Wasl has exceptions. There are the following words that are, regardless of the kasra or dhamma or the situation of the third letter or the situation of the first vowel letter. In this case, typically the first vowel letter is going to be the third letter. I haven't found any examples of it not being the third letter. But in these cases, these words that you see on your screen right here, Hamzat al-Wasl is always read with a kasra, regardless of what's on the third. So even though Shin, Dhamma, Waw, Sukun, Shu, so you would be thinking, hey, this Hamzat al-Wasl, if this was a Hamzat al-Wasl, the copy paste didn't work too well, then you would think that this would be Umshu. No, actually it's Imshu. This is Iqbu, because Dhamma, you would think, hey, the third or the first vowel letter is actually a Dhamma. It might be Uqbu, but it's not. It's Iqbu, Itu, Imbu, Ismuhu, Imru, Ibnu. These are all examples of exceptions to that Hamzat al-Wasl rule. Now, here's the problem. You can't remember all these examples, and I don't expect you to. I don't expect you to remember that. But a good thing is, in the quick research that I was able to do, I did not find any instances of any of these words occurring at the start of a verse, right? So as long as you connect the previous word to any of these, let's assume for argument's sake, you come across a word in the middle of the Quran, imbu or ismu or ibnu, then as long as you connect it with the previous word, you will skip the Hamzat al-Wasl altogether and you'll be fine. You don't have to worry about that rule. So here's a recommendation I make for beginners. When it comes to stopping in the middle of a verse and you realize that you have to break your breath, go ahead, break your breath. If you go back 3 words and it happens that, let's say you go back 2 words and it happens that that word has a Hamzat al-Wasl, then you're going to have to remember all these rules and you're going to have to, oh my God, is it the Dhamma or the Fatha, or is it one of the exceptions? I don't know, right? Don't want you to get overwhelmed. Just go back another word, right? Instead of going back 2, go back 3. Let's assume you wanted to go back 3 And the third word happens to have an Hamzat al-Wasl, and you can't remember all these rules related to Hamzat al-Wasl. Start back from 4 words, right? And then basically what that will allow you to do is it'll allow you to connect the words together, and when those words are connecting, the Hamzat al-Wasl gets cancelled, and you don't have to worry about these rules, right? Simple guideline, but that will help beginners. So let's go ahead and get into some example here. This is an example of the word ibnu, right? And this is going to be qaf, fatha, alif, sukun, qa, lam, dhamma, waw, lam, dhamma, ba, sukun, lub, qa, lub, right? Qa, lubnu. Let's assume for argument's sake you were reading this verse and it happened to be a long verse, and you say qa, lubnu lahu bunyana. Okay, now like you happen to stop at bunyana, right? You want to go back and 3 words start. Oh, it's ibnu. Wait, I don't remember. This is a Hamzat al-Wasl. The third letter, or the first letter that's after the Hamzat al-Wasl that contains a diacritic, that contains a vowel, is a dhamma. But is this one of the exception words, or is it one of the words that actually, because it has a dhamma, it's a dhamma? Should I say ubnu or ibnu? I don't remember. But don't worry about it. Why don't you just go back one additional word? So you just say qalubnu lahu bunyana, or you just continue from an additional word from the back. It's up to you. Basically, if the Hamzat al-Wasl rules and exceptions start to overwhelm you, don't let them overwhelm you. Just start back from a few words so that this will become qalubnu, and basically keep canceling the Hamzat al-Wasl, and you never have to worry about this rule. These rules will apply more if the word you're starting from happens to be at the beginning of a verse, and you have to start from the beginning of a verse, and that beginning contains the Hamzat al-Wasl, then all these rules you're going to have to remember. But the good thing is I couldn't find any instances of the exceptions occurring at the beginning of verses. So these rules that we talked about, these 3 rules or 4 rules, right, of Hamzat al-Wasl, this will typically only apply when you are starting at the beginning of a verse. So let's go ahead and keep going with this one. Imshu. The word is imshu. Now, even though shin dhamma, this hamzat al-wasl, if you were starting from this word, let's say you were reciting for a long time and you happen to have wasbiru, you happen to stop at you happen to stop at wasbiru, and you want to go back to words. You get wasbiru, and you come across imshu. Oh, this is Hamzat al-Wasl. Sheen has a dhamma. Oh, wait a minute. I don't remember. Is this one of the exception words? Or should I say imshu or umshu? Meaning, if it's an exception word, then this would be Hamza kasra. Mim sukun im, sheen dhamma wa sukun shu, imshu. Right? But if it's not an exception word, if the regular rules of Hamzat al-Wasl apply, then the third letter, or the first vowel letter in this case, which is the sheen, the first vowel letter, shin dhamma, has a dhamma on it, so this might be umshu. Oh man, I don't remember. I'm nervous. No need to worry. You stopped at wasbiru, go back one word. Oh, this happens to have a hamzat al-wasl. Go back another. Animshu wasbiru ala, and continue. This will cancel out the hamzat al-wasl, and you don't have to worry about these exceptional rules. This is going to be thumma qudu, and this word is iqdu, not uqdu, even though dad dhamma is the first vowel letter. This is an exceptional word, and the same thing applies to itu, thumma tu, right? If mim fatha hamza sukun ma, just connect the previous word and you should be fine. I hope that's clear. On to exercises. Find someone at your local masjid and recite to them a page at random in the Quran. And when you come across a long verse, stop in the middle. And following the rules that you've learned here, continue back 2 or 3 words from your stop. And keep all the rules of starting and stopping in mind, right? We had a two-part video. I would say perhaps even recite more than one page. Take as much time as you like, but at least one page would be your exercise. Keep all the rules of starting and stopping in mind, and ask the person to help you with them, keeping all these rules in mind. And basically, that's going to be your exercise. And continuing with these and basically practice will make you perfect. In conclusion, what did we learn today? We learned all the rules of stopping and starting. In the next few videos will be, I think, some additional exercise videos. I will do some the final Qaida Nuraniya video. These two videos had been a long time due. People had been asking for these. And basically, I wanted to take my time because I wanted to cover all the foundational knowledge before I came to these rules. And I wanted to curate these with beginners in mind, especially beginners who speak English. So that's why if you like, take a look at the videos that I make versus some of the other videos some of the other people make. I curate my videos, I make my videos with beginners in mind specifically. Jazakallah khair for watching. If you liked the video, please like the video on YouTube, comment, subscribe, and share the video to help me spread this knowledge. Jazakallah khair for watching. I will see you next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.